Okie dokie. Well, let's get started. I want to talk to you a little bit about this recipe first anyway, and about the equipment. So normally, if we were to have made this ramen from scratch, which we absolutely could have, but it requires a lot of ingredients that aren't necessarily as common in your kitchen. Things like mirin and kombu and oyster sauce. So not a lot of people keep those in your kitchens. I didn't want you guys to have this crazy grocery store journey that you had to go on to get all of the ingredients for a restaurant style ramen. And usually when you're buying ramen noodles, you're gonna get the seasoning pack anyway. So as long as you're buying a quality ramen noodle, like the ones I recommended, you might as well use the seasoning pack, at least as a base. So we're gonna start with that base flavor, and we're really gonna build on top of it and add in some freshness and add in a little bit more flavor with all of the seasonings and whatnot that we're gonna use. So we're gonna start with our little packets. I've got Mike's Mighty. This is my favorite. They also have the little cups of it as well. They use organic noodles. They're not gluten-free. So Chuck's gonna eat this one, but I'm gonna swap out my noodles, which is kind of my go-to, for these shiitake noodles. Wonder noodles, miracle noodles. You can pretty much find them in most stores these days, but they're a shiitake noodle. They're very, very low carb. This whole bag has 4 grams of carbs and 2 of its fiber. So I really love these. You could also just use any other gluten-free noodle, even if it's not the ramen texture. You could swap that out if you want to make sure it's gluten-free. So got this here. Lotus Foods has gluten-free ramen packets with the seasoning packet as well. So that was one of the other ones that I recommended, was that Lotus Foods. So we're going to take a little shortcut, kind of a little cheat mode here, but it's going to be really delicious, and it's not going to taste like it came from a packet at all. Okay, so all we're gonna need for equipment tonight, I showed you guys an equipment list on my stories, but in case you didn't see it, a large pot and a smaller pot. So my large pot is like yay tall. It's not very tall, but make sure that you have something with a big bottom width. The reason is because we want our liquid to be shallow. When boiling our eggs, I don't want it to cover the top of the eggs. It can, and it's not a problem, but I'd prefer that it doesn't cover the top of the eggs when you're doing a soft boil. So if you use a wide bottom pan, the liquid's gonna be more shallow, and it's gonna allow us to do that a little bit better. So I'm gonna take you guys on a little journey, bring you over to this side of the kitchen so that we can start cooking. So as I move you guys over, go ahead and heat your pans to like medium low. If you're using cast iron, make sure you go lower, like a medium low. And then there's Chuck. Everybody say hi, Chuck. If you are using cast iron, go a little lower because it does get hotter. And then if you are not using cast iron, go full medium. So I'm gonna go about medium low, a 4 out of 10. We're gonna get that heated up. Okay. And then I'm going to put a little avocado oil. Make sure you're using a high heat oil here. I recommended avocado or coconut. Avocado has a really mild flavor. And then coconut just goes really well with all of the other components in this dish. Coconut can have a coconutty flavor, but I'm gonna push this back a little bit. But with this dish, the ingredients go really well. I'm also gonna grab my cutting board and bring it somewhere in this cluster of stuff over here so that I can have it closer. So heat your pans, get them on to like medium heat, and then I'm gonna bring over the cutting board. Make sure your ingredients are close by. My little cheat sheet. Does anyone have any questions on any of the ingredients? Any of the cuts of the vegetables or anything else right now? Any ramen questions? Now's a great time for questions while our pans heat. Right. Perfect. No, doesn't look like there's any questions. Not yet. Let me know, guys. I'm gonna swirl this oil around. Takes a minute. While we're waiting, you can open up your ramen packs, take out the seasoning packets, and leave the noodles aside. So with the Mike's Mighty, they have a season packet that has that powdery seasoning, and they also have a little oil packet, so make sure you get both of those out of there. I wonder if this will help a little. Does that help? Lights on or lights off? Let's see. Can you see, babe? Tell me what looks better.
You have to wait a second.
Okay. This is lights on. My sister's making me blush here. With my top knot today, because I didn't wash my hair today.
The low light's better than the highlight.
What about no light? There's a little lag. And I got 2 oil packets in one of my Mike's Mighty bags, so it's a little extra.
Leave it off.
Leave it off?
I would leave it off.
Okay.
Don't check. Sorry.
All right, my oil is now starting to move around in my pan, which is a good sign. You guys remember the test. Your palm about 2 inches above the pan. When the heat's rising, that's when you know it's time to start cooking. So from here, remember, it's gonna go pretty quick. Also, right now, read the back of your ramen packet and read how much water it says to add. Every seasoning packet, every brand is gonna be a little different. Okay, light looks the same. So mine says 1.5 cups. So since I have 2 packs, I'm gonna do 3 cups, but also add 1 cup. So no matter what your packet says, add an extra cup of water to your measuring cup, because we're gonna be adding in so much other flavors that if we don't put a little more water, it's gonna be really salty. So when we are measuring, just make sure that you add an extra cup. Tater Tot's trying to eat Jocko's food. Tater Tot. Oh, there she goes. Sassy. Mine actually only fits 2 cups, so I'm gonna have to fill this twice. So I'm gonna fill it up once now, and then I'll fill it up once again later. Pan is almost there. My filtered water is this way. Make sure you shout out your questions if you have them too, guys. Okay, pan's heating up pretty nicely. The first things that are gonna go in are aromatics. Now, no matter what mushrooms you're using, you wanna make sure that you are using some fresh mushrooms because it's gonna add some really good flavor. Also, I have this mushroom umami seasoning here from Trader Joe's. There's also one called Magic Mushroom Powder you can get out there. There's a lot of different brands, but this really adds a nice kick. It's got kosher salt, dried onions, mustard seed, porcini mushrooms, white button mushrooms, crushed red pepper, black pepper, and thyme in it. So lots of good umami in here, so I'm going to be using that. If you don't have it, don't worry. As long as you have the fresh mushrooms, then you'll be good to go. Look at this crazy little thing I got going on here. Y'all, my hair is not the best today. Tomorrow is hair wash day. Okay, so first thing that's going to go in, I have nowhere for my drink. It's just going to go right here, is our garlic, ginger, and mushrooms. So I've got those all finely diced. You should hear a nice little sizzle as soon as you get that in. And if you guys remember my garlic rule, we usually don't ever add garlic first because my garlic rule is 60 seconds. But we're gonna get the liquid in real quick today. So, garlic, fresh ginger. If you're using powdered ginger, I almost forgot. Let me look at what my measurement is. Half a teaspoon. Start with half a teaspoon if you're using powdered ginger. We're gonna swirl this around, make sure that garlic and ginger get in that oil. It should already smell delicious. Garlic and ginger just have so much Yes, that's an adjective. This is why I love this pan. I can just kind of grab and shake. Okay, I need a little more oil. Always just use enough oil to coat your pan. If I don't tell you how much to use, I could just tell I need a little more. About a tablespoon is what we should have started with. If I never tell you, just coat your pan or call me out. Yell at me a little bit. All caps. is how you would yell at me on here. Okay, garlic and ginger are in. Good. Perfect. Checking my recipe here, guys, which I will have posted on the website tonight. So next, we are going to add in our coconut aminos, fish sauce, toasted sesame oil, seasoning packets, mushroom seasoning. Make sure you've got all that handy. We're almost at our 60-second mark here. I'm actually going to add in those liquid ingredients just for a second before I pour in the seasoning mix, just to kind of deglaze the garlic from the bottom of this pan. So let's start with your coconut aminos or your soy sauce. If you're using soy sauce, it should be low sodium. If it's not, cut this down. I'm using a 1/4 cup. It's for 2 servings, and I knew I was going to run out of this brand, so or this bottle rather. I got you guys here.
Need some help?
Can you open this? Thank God he was walking to the fridge. Okay. 1/4 cup of your coconut aminos. I'd start with 2 tablespoons if you're using soy sauce, because it is a little saltier. So that's going to get in there. Okay. And then we want 2 teaspoons of toasted sesame oil. This has a really strong flavor, so start with less, and then you can always add more of that in if you like a strong sesame flavor. And then fish sauce, 1 teaspoon. If you are not using this or you're really sensitive to a fish sauce taste, don't use it. I promise you 1 teaspoon is going to make a difference in the flavor, but you will not taste it. Chuck does not like strong fish sauce flavors, so I know I have to be careful with it. Okay, I need to turn my heat up a little bit here. Great. So now that I've put those liquids in, I can kind of deglaze all the garlic and ginger from the bottom of my pan, and it's allowing those mushrooms to soften a bit. Perfect.
That smells so good, Luke.
Chuck says it already smells good. I hope y'all that are cooking can smell it as well. So our mushroom seasoning is going in too. We're going to use about 1.5 teaspoons, which is a 1/2 tablespoon. I just got my teaspoon wet, so I'm going to eyeball it, but use your teaspoon if you're not confident. About 1/2 tablespoon of that mushroom powder. You can always add more because it is delicious. If you're not using it, again, don't worry, you're still going to have a lot of flavor. Most ramen seasoning packets have mushroom in there as well. Then we're going to go in with our packets. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Perfect. Go in with our little cheat here. We're cheating, and it feels so good. Okay. Now, if you guys wanted to make this completely from scratch, I've done it before. You absolutely could follow this same recipe. All you would do different is you would want to start with a mushroom stock. Mushroom stock, any kind of stock. Just make sure it's not a broth, any kind of stock. So mushroom stock would work, vegetable stock, beef stock, pork stock, chicken stock, but make sure it's not a broth. Broths don't have as much flavor. They haven't had as much developed. They don't have the bones. Like a bone broth would be really great. So if you want to do this completely from scratch, you could use a homemade or a store-bought bone broth or stock in replace of the water in the seasoning packets. So you might want to taste as you go and add in, these are always so hard to open, and add in additional soy sauce or additional sesame oil, depending on how much flavor you get from your broth. So because I use Mike's Mighty, I've got these little oil packets. If you haven't cut your lime, go ahead and do that. If you're using lime juice, we're going to use about 1 tablespoon. Just making sure. Yep, my alfalfa here. Woo, man. This oil is going everywhere. I'm grabbing my towel. Okay. Always making a mess. Never fails. So, now that all that seasoning is in there, we're going to squeeze our lime. I say the juice of a whole lime. I really like the acidity and brightness and vibrance. It really cuts through all of that strong seasoning. Can you grab me a fork, babe?
Sure.
show you a trick to squeeze a lime because mine wasn't quite as juicy as I would want it. So you stick the fork in the lime and squeeze and twist. And now look at all that juice that comes out of it. All I've added is the mushrooms. Everything else is going to be at the very end. We're not even going to cook them in here. We're just going to put them in the bowl and spoon the hot broth over. So, just the mushrooms, garlic, ginger, and then all of our flavorings. Our coconut aminos and all of the liquid stuff. And then I added the packets in there, and the mushroom seasoning, and the lime juice. And now we're going to go in with our water. So remember, whatever your packet says, and you should have 2 packets, whatever your packet says, and then plus an additional cup because we added in all that extra flavoring, plus an additional cup. I'm filling my water here and reading your comments. Okay.
Taylor Smith's here.
Taylor Smith's watching from Georgia, I think. Playtime. Okay. So, all the water's in there. Now we want to bring it up to a boil. So go ahead and increase that heat. I'm trying to clean as I go here a little bit. Increase the heat and bring it up to a boil. I'm going to cover mine to speed that up. I only ended up using a juice of half a lime because I'll add more if I want it at the end. And I got a lot of juice using that fork. So I'm going to cover it and we're going to bring it to a boil. I got it on full speed here. Now, if you're using eggs, make sure you've got those ready because next we are going to soft boil our eggs. So grab your eggs out. I usually do 1 egg per bowl. I cut it in half so you have 2 little halves, but go crazy. You can fill the whole thing with eggs if that's what you want. You're in charge, Marge.
How does that affect the heat, though?
What's that?
Add more eggs, obviously going to reduce the heat and cause your cooking.
With this big of a pan, 2 more eggs is not going to be a big deal. Chuck said it will not affect the heat if you cook more eggs, but no, it will not. Cheers. While we wait for this to boil, I am parched.
And that first beer went down nice.
Whew, really parched. Good thing I'm drinking my healthy booze today.
Healthy food.
Anybody have questions? Anybody lost? Anybody not sure what the heck we just did? Let me know, please. I got caps everywhere. Don't put anything away yet either, because at the end, if you feel like you need some more of something, every ramen packet is going to be different. So certain ones may be saltier, certain ones may be more garlicky. So keep everything out as far as your liquids go, because in the end, when you taste, you may want to add a little more of something just depending on which packet you use. They're all a little different. Oh, I almost forgot one thing.
Don't do that.
I'll wait till it boils. I'm not going to take the lid off because I don't want the heat to escape. But our chili flakes. So I'm actually using, my neighbor gave me these beautiful chilies from her mom's garden. So I'm going to use a couple of these beauties. But you could also just use crushed red pepper flakes. And that would be measurement 1 teaspoon, or however much you like, depending on your spice tolerance. So I'm going to use these. I'm not even sure what kind of chilies these are, but they're hot and they're spicy and they're tasty and I love them. So I'm going to pretend like they're like Thai redbird chilies. I'm going to put 2 in because that's brave. They're really hot. I can already hear this almost coming to a boil.
Hey, what are you drinking?
What's that?
What are you drinking?
Why? Did somebody ask? Oh, if you asked what I'm drinking, sorry, I didn't see that question come up yet.
She's blind right now.
It's a hard kombucha that I recently found and I love it. It is 0 sugar and it's got live probiotics. It's gluten-free. It actually has adaptogens because it has ashwagandha in it. So it's grapefruit thyme with ginger, turmeric, and ashwagandha. So I just feel like I'm getting healthier while I drink it. I also had this mixed berry one that had elderberry and goji, and it was delish as well. But this is the only flavor I have left, and it's actually my favorite, the grapefruit thyme. So That's my new love. It's organic. I actually found it at the gas station, of all places. Wasn't even going in there for it, but I saw it and had to grab it and try it and actually liked it. Also, what was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought talking about booze. I was talking about chilies. Okay, my water is about to boil. Is anybody else not boiling? Well, wait. My water is boiling. Oh yeah. You're gonna want a lid because we're gonna cover it. If you're not boiling, let me know.
Where do you get those eggs from?
I'll mention it. Okay, once we're boiling, guys, eggs are going in. I've got some farm fresh eggs, local eggs that I got from Be Visible Light, which is a local farmer that I order my box from. If you are local here in Charlotte and are curious about those weekly farm boxes, please let me know. I'll direct you. So I'm gonna go in, that one's really big, with eggs, go right in there. They're not covered, that's what we want. We don't want them to be covered by the liquid. If they are, it's okay. Now you're gonna wanna set a timer for this. So eggs go in and you need to set a timer on your phone or tell your Alexa, or for me it's Google, 6.5 minutes exactly. So, okay Google, set a timer for 6.5 minutes.
6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Starting now. Okay, so those are in there, 6.5 minutes. They should be boiling. We want to do a couple things while we wait for these to cook. We need to get an ice bath ready so that when the eggs are done, we can plunge them into the ice bath so that they stop cooking and cool through. This is going to make them a lot easier to peel too. Now normally when I boil eggs, I'll put a little vinegar in the water, and that helps for the shell to come off easily when you're peeling them. But because this is a broth, it's got so much going on in it that you don't need to add any of that because there's already all these seasonings in there. They peel really nicely. So I've got a bowl here that I'm going to fill with ice and purified water. Make sure that you're not using tap water ideally. If that's all you have, then that's fine. But you ideally want to use filtered or purified water because eggs are really porous. So they're going to absorb everything that you put them and plunge them into. So these eggs are actually absorbing all the flavor from this broth as well. So I'm going to put ice and then fill it with purified water, and we'll have our ice bath ready. So you guys do the same. If you start to notice it's like boiling over the edges too, you can turn it down a little bit. Just make sure you keep a rapid rolling boil. Rapid rolling boil, the technical term. All right, my ice bath is ready. I'm just gonna put this right here so I can get my eggs right into it. Get something, you can use your whatever spoon you have to stir this soup to take your eggs out. I'm going to grab a slotted spoon just because it'll make it a little easier. So if you've got a slotted spoon, I like this guy because it fits an egg perfect, like a pasta spoon, or one like this will work, but that will help us take our egg out. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill our other pot. This is going to be our noodle pot. So you're going to fill this with water, and then we're going to bring this to a boil as well. So get this pot filled with water, and we're going to salt it a little bit and bring it to a boil so that we can cook our noodles in this. Now you absolutely could just cook the noodles in this broth once you take the eggs out, but I like to cook them separate and put them in the bowl and then just ladle the broth on top of it. That's the way I like to do it. You could just cook them in the broth once the eggs are out as well if you're using the same kind of noodles. But I'm also using 2 types of noodles, so that's why I'm going to cook them separate. So I'm going to get this coming to a boil. I'm gonna salt it. Anytime you're cooking any kind of pasta or noodle, salt your water. And salt it more than you think that you would need to. Because the flavors are gonna start developing immediately when they're cooking in the pasta water. So you wanna season at every step, and you want your salted water to almost be like ocean water. Like, you want it pretty salty when you're cooking pasta. So if you want to taste it, if it tastes like something you would drink in the ocean or at the ocean accidentally, then you're on the right track. Man, whew.
Sweating over there?
It is actually, I cooled the house down before I started cooking today. Chuck recommended that because I knew I would get hot. It's like 80 degrees here today and we're making soup. So, you guys have any suggestions for next week? Anything you want to learn how to cook? While we're waiting for these things to boil, let me know. Call them out. I know we also had the chicken tenders. The buffalo chicken tenders were also a hit last week, but this kind of blew everything out of the water. Let me know if you have suggestions. I'm going to make sure I'm on track here. Perfect. Good. Also, right now, while we wait, we can cut the stems off of our bok choy. So remember, mine were frozen. That's why they look like this. But just cut that little stem off if you want it to be out of the way. No, if you have fresh bok choy, you're going to, when you ladle the broth over it, it's going to wilt like this. But mine were frozen. They were frozen from fresh. So they will wilt, but not until you pour the broth over them. But just take the little stem off. Just give it a little, my cutting board is crowded here. This is my weekly, I do not recommend you do this at home, is cut on a crowded cutting board. Okay, so I've just, in one fell swoop, cut all of those stems off of the bok choy. And then you can just start pulling your cilantro leaves off of the stems. I like to leave mine whole for this. They look pretty and they kind of wilt in that broth. I know a lot of people don't like cilantro, so you don't have to use it. Oh, and one thing I forgot, and I'll tell you why I forgot it. I forgot green onions, and that's because they are outside growing in my garden. Chuck, will you be a doll and cut me a green onion?
Oh, you're asking for a lot.
Yeah, he's nervous right now.
Where are the scissors?
They're on the windowsill, the garden scissors. So,
And how much should I cut off of one?
leave about an inch.
Leave an inch?
Leave an inch. Green onions are in the garden. I almost forgot about them. Here goes my timer. Okay, Google, stop timer. So, stop what you're doing. Get your egg out. Careful, your handle might be hot. Get your egg out and into, or eggs, into that ice bath. This is a soft boil. If you want a hard boil, let them go a couple more minutes in there, probably 2 more minutes in there.
More or less.
Maybe one more if we have it.
Same size?
Mm-hmm. This is my little onion from my garden. So I'll show you guys how to cut those too. Now that the eggs are out and they're in the ice bath, bring that heat back down to just a simmer, like a low, medium low on your broth. You just want to simmer it the rest of the time. And once it's done boiling, we will have a little taste, but it's like wicked hot right now. Okay, back to what we were doing, which was stemming our cilantro. If you don't like it, that's fine. Cilantro is one of those funny herbs because it's really great in Mexican cooking and Latin and Spanish cooking, and also equally as great in Asian cuisines. So it's going to lend a lot of flavor. All right. Perfect. Cilantro is stemmed. Now with my green onions, I'm going to show you how I like to cut them. You're You're probably not going to be able to see it on this board necessarily, but usually you just chop an onion, but I like them on the bias. So you kind of cut them at an angle. And I think they look really nice that way. So you get these little angled, pretty green onions. But just chop them up. It's all going to the same place. I'm still waiting on my noodle water to boil. Just make sure that you've brought that broth down to a simmer and your eggs are in the ice bath.
I've lost the bet.
Chuck and I had a bet going as to when Tater Tot would start screaming for dinner, because usually when I start cooking, she starts screaming that she's hungry, and I bet 6:25 and he bet 6:27, and it's 6:37, so we both lost. All right, come on, broth. Boil, boil. Now, have a little taste of your broth. Blow on it. Give it a taste. Mine is good. It's perfect. I don't want to add more water. It's salty, but the noodles are going to take in a lot of that, and the veggies that we put in there are going to take in a lot of that. If you think it's too salty, add a little more water. If it's not salty enough, add a little bit more coconut aminos or soy sauce. If you want more sesame flavor, add a little bit more of that. You can put more mushroom seasoning in, but you really want, I don't know how to explain umami. If anybody can explain umami, please do it for our people. But it's just a really delicious, savory flavor. Like Parmesan cheese is very umami and mushrooms are very umami. So it's, soy sauce is very umami. It's like a salty, savory kind of flavor. But my broth has that, which is,
I don't know what it is, but it's good.
I don't know what it is, but it's good, which is what you want. So taste it. You guys, oh, also throw in those chilies. I almost forgot. I'm going to take the caps off of mine so that they kind of get in there quicker. If you're using whole chilies, take the caps off. If you're using dried chilies, you're totally fine. That heat is going to absorb quickly. So,
This one says you're very umami.
I'm very umami, apparently. Okay. While we're still waiting for this water to boil, if your guys' water is boiling, plunge that pasta. But mine is not boiling. So, while we're waiting for it, I'm going to get these. If you're using your Wonder Noodles, I'm going to cut them open. And I'm going to get them into a strainer so I can rinse them before I quickly heat them in the boiling water. These are literally just going to be plunged in the boiling water, out and into the bowl, whereas the other noodles are going to take a couple minutes to rehydrate. So I'm going to strain these real quick. If you're using Wonder Noodles, do the same, or shiitake, do the same. Rinse them off. Great, so those are all rinsed and ready to be plunged. Right now, we're almost boiling. Grab your bowls for plating. I'm gonna get this disaster out of the way here. I'm gonna put my bowls right here. We're gonna plate. As always, I'm gonna show you guys how to plate it just like the picture so you feel like professional chefs. Excellent. I feel like you can see more of one than the other. I finally got a stand that has you guys in the same spot, but one of you just sees more right and one of you sees more left. So trying to make a win-win situation here. Okay. Almost boiling. Let's peel our eggs so that those are ready, guys. So I like to peel them in the water because then the peel is in the water and it's less messy. So take your egg out, crack it on the counter, crack it around a couple times. I just released some air. I kind of rotate it as I crack it like this. You could also give it a gentle roll, but it's soft boiled, so be careful. Then you're gonna wanna find whatever piece comes off the quickest, and that's where you're gonna start. Get your hand under it or your finger under it, and I do it under the water. And I'm sorry, I just realized Instagram, you guys can't see this. Let me move this here. Okay. You do it under the water so that as the shells are coming off, they're staying in the freaking bowl and not all over your counter. That's why. And then once you get your egg peeled, I'm going to show you. It also just helps them peel easier. Everything's just nicer. And because we had all of the seasonings in our broth, if you add vinegar to water, it does the same thing, but it just makes it peel so nicely. So, egg is peeled. I'm going to set it, give it a little dunk to make sure all the shells are off. I'm going to set it on my cutting board. Don't cut it yet. And I think my water's boiling. Hopefully you guys are with me. Oh, yeah.
16 minutes and Instagram kicks you off.
Okay, so if you're using the shiitake noodles, Wonder Noodles, Miracle Noodles, just plunge them into your hot water, your boiling water. I do mine in a mini mesh strainer. Throw them in there if that's all you're using. I'm just using 2 different kinds. Literally, I just want to heat them up because they're already soft. And then I'm just going to get them into a bowl. Now, it's okay if they cool down a little bit because we're going to pour piping hot broth over them. Now, I'm going to get my little puck or square or whatever you have of noodles into that water. Those are going to take a couple minutes. Okay. So, those are going to take a couple minutes while they get nice and soft and start to fall out of that puck. We're going to peel our other egg. Anybody behind? Meatballs and homemade sauce. Ooh, good one, Casey, because I have a really good trick for meatballs. I've already posted it in a video on Instagram, but it's all right.
Yeah, you already got 3 votes for meatballs.
Do I already have 3 votes for meatballs? Huh. Gazpacho. Oh, I did gazpacho on one of Chuck and I's chopped nights a couple weeks ago. We like to do chopped nights. We were doing them every Wednesday. We didn't do it this week because we were running low on our butcher's box, so I wouldn't have really been surprised as to what meat he pulled out of the freezer. But where he chooses a mystery basket for me, and then I have to create a meal from it. So I did a gazpacho on a chopped night a couple weeks ago. Let's see, what else do we have here? Close up. Chuck's rigging the contest for meatballs. Ooh, poke, Leanna, that's a great, great summer recipe, and one that I have a good one for. That was an option from last week too. Meatballs. Okay, well, per usual, tomorrow, guys, I will put up a little vote for you so that you can vote on what you want. Also, feel free to always DM me and let me know different ideas that you have. I want to know what you guys want to cook. You're the ones who are cooking it. I cook this stuff all the time. So these are perfect. My noodles are perfect. It depends on your brand. So
how do you know when they're perfect?
Well, you want them to not be too mushy. Again, like always, don't touch pasta that's coming out of boiling water. I don't recommend it. But if you can break it and it doesn't feel hard to the touch, you want them a little al dente because you're going to put this, really hot sauce on it, or really hot broth on it. So, yeah, it's going to keep cooking a little. A little al dente, but you don't want them mushy. There's nothing worse than mushy noodles. So I'm going to get these into the bowl. If a little water gets in there, doesn't matter. We're putting broth on top. Woo, hot. And then you can, once you're done with this, turn off your pot for boiling water. And we're going to garnish and ladle our broth and be done. Now, I ask guys, please, if you made this recipe, post a little picture on Instagram or Facebook, whatever platform you use to watch it. Post a picture, tag me in it, at foodie_pharmacy, FARMACY, you know because you're watching it. Tag me in it, show us your beautiful results. This really encourages people to come cook along next time when they see that your dishes look beautiful. So
Your results will be graded by me.
so tag me in those, and also you feel free to use the hashtag nutrition-based comfort taste. That is my Foodie Pharmacy hashtag. That's my tagline of my business. Everything is nutrition-based with a comfort taste. So I'm getting these 2 bowls here. I'm trying to get them so that you guys can at least see one of them. Is that okay?
Facebook
Okay.
can see mine. I don't think Instagram can see really either.
It looks like Instagram can see yours.
6:47.
Okay. Oh, 6:47 is when Tater Tot started screaming. Okay. Grab a ladle, people,
Let me see both of them now.
and get that ready. So, let's grab our ingredients. I'm going to grab my carrots. And just, I hope you guys can hear Tater Tot because it's great. Just kind of put it, oh boy. Put them to one side here. I like to kind of compartmentalize my toppings, but feel free to just throw them all over. Then we've got cilantro. Kind of sprinkle that. I'll use a little less on Chuck's because I know that he isn't the biggest fan. Oh my goodness. You think we were killing her. Bok choy. Get a couple nice big pieces of baby bok choy on there. Then we've got our green onions. Okay, green onions. And I'm gonna try to ladle out some of the mushrooms by themselves first, just so that I can make it look exactly like that picture did, and just put them off to one side. You don't have to do that again. You can just pour everything on there, get it over with. Who cares if it's pretty, you're eating it. If that's what you're thinking right now, then do it. Okay. If you used whole chilies, I don't recommend biting into one of those bad boys whole. You're in charge, Marge. Okay. So the egg's gonna go on last. So here's our beautiful bowls. This is the shiitake noodle. And this is just the Mike's Mighty. So now, tilt your pan and carefully, now I'm gonna make a mess. It's just what's gonna happen. This is me we're talking about.
That's true.
And ladle it over. Make sure you get all the broth. If it doesn't fit in these bowls, come back for seconds. And when you ladle it over those veggies are going to kind of cook a little and wilt and start to absorb all the flavor from the broth. If you would have had the carrots in there, they would have got real soggy, and the cilantro too. You always want to add herbs last anyway. So I like to do it this way. Okay, it's almost all gone. How we doing, guys? Just so you know, if we do go the meatballs and homemade sauce recipe, it's probably going to take longer than an hour. So just know that when you vote. I can simplify sauce.
It's totally worth it.
I can simplify sauce a little bit, but it's just something that takes time. Okay, got a couple straggler mushrooms. There's some garlic and ginger on the bottom that I'm going to make sure I get, but for plating purposes and getting you guys to getting this shown to you. Now, take your egg and because I'm doing this to my hand, I'm going to use a not so sharp knife. But cut it on your cutting board. Cut it on your cutting board. I want to show you guys. and you have the ooey gooey soft boiled egg. So that's gonna go right on top. If you have some flaky sea salt, flake a little on top of those eggs. If not, this broth is plenty salty enough, so don't worry about it. Make sure you get all the egg off of that. Okay, guys. I'm gonna get a little flaky salt on here. Not too much because it's a salty broth, but it just really brings the flavors in the yolk out. Madon is my favorite. And here's dinner. I'm gonna make sure these phones don't fall into the plates here, but look at how yummy and delicious. I'll show you guys both of them. There's our ramens. So, one, enjoy your food. I hope that yours turned out beautiful and delicious. Two, we'll be voting for what recipe you want next week, tomorrow, and let me know if you have any specific requests. And three, post your photos, tag me, Foodie Pharmacy, and use the hashtag nutrition-based comfort taste if you wish. That hashtag is just only used by Foodie Pharmacy usually, so it has a lot of my dishes and people who make my dishes in it. Also, lastly, get your chopsticks that you have in your junk drawer in your kitchen, because I know all of you have it, along with all the ketchup packets and plastic silverware. Get your chopsticks out and enjoy your ramen. Cheers, guys. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you tomorrow.